Thank you for joining us. Welcome to tonight's webinar. Today's topic is how to qualify and negotiate with sellers. For your questions, please type them in the chat box and that will be addressed at the end of the webinar. To those on Facebook, please enter your questions on the comment section. And now here's our host, Mr. Nhan Lam.
Ani, for the kind introduction, and welcome to tonight's meetup event that we have once a month. Every month we host these events, and every month we have a different topic designed and geared towards real estate investors who want to get their business started or advance their business to the next level. Okay, and tonight's topic is one of my favorite topics: is how to qualify sellers and also negotiate with sellers. Okay, so what we're gonna do right now, guys, is first of all, for those who's joining in and those who don't know our organization, my name is Nhan Lam. And I've been doing real estate investing for the past 11 years or so. And we started off part time, and now still having my full time job as an engineer with the federal government, fighting the rat race. Was able to build this business on a part time basis within 2.5 years. Was able to replace my income for my job and been doing real estate and entrepreneurship ever since then. I'm blessed with 5 beautiful children, and we're looking forward to raising them the way we want to on our terms and not anyone else's terms. Okay, so with that, guys, we want to do these presentations to reach out back to the community to show you guys how we got started, the same way someone else showed us how we got started, so that way hopefully you'll have the same result as us. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on tonight's event. So first of all, guys, when you're working with real estate, the what you're trying to do is look for deals where you can negotiate and pre-qualify sellers in a position to where you have good margins. Okay, so we're not looking for good deals, we're looking for great deals, and the only way to find that is being in the right place at the right time in the right set of circumstances where the seller is willing to sell to you at a discount because of circumstances. All right, so just like in any types of sales cycle or sales venture, whether it be selling insurance or whether it be selling cars or selling anything, and we're here on the acquisition side, but acquisitions for real estate is similar to sales, and we follow a similar sales cycle. First, you'll have prospects that come in that may turn into leads, and those leads may turn into what we call qualified leads. Okay, and we'll go into what's a qualified lead and what's an unqualified lead a little later on, which leads to opportunity and then a potential person that can sell you a piece of real estate to expand your business. All right, so when you're qualifying leads, when you're working with a homeowner who is trying to sell their piece of residential real estate, what you're looking for are selling signals. Okay, now I know in sales it's reverse things, is that you're looking for buying signals. Here, as a real estate acquisitions person, because you're looking for a piece of real estate at a discount, you're looking for selling signals. Okay, and the things you're looking for are three things. Number one is urgency, means they need to sell like yesterday because of circumstances. Number two, they just need cash. Maybe they're tapped out of their credit cards, they have unpaid medical bills or unpaid bills. For that fact, they have no income coming in because they lost their job or maybe they're retired, and the only source of equity or cash is their piece of real estate that they need to sell right now to get cash out to take care of their circumstances. Okay, or maybe they're excuse me, they're in a situation where their house is outdated, is in disrepair, it has deteriorated across the years, and they have absolutely no resources or desire to update their home to today's standards. Okay, so all these things lead to what we call a motivated seller. Think of your situation in your life. If you ever own anything that you no longer wanted, whether it be an old car, an old TV, an old piece of furniture, or an old anything that's laying around your house that you just maybe want to post on Craigslist and say, hey, free, take this right now. That means you're a motivated seller to get rid of that property. Okay, the same thing applies to real estate. Now, you'll never get it for free. You can't see a piece of real estate for free unless it's gifted to you by a family member or such, but you can get it at a deep discount if they're motivated enough. Okay, So if they don't want the piece of real estate, they're motivated. So what causes motivation? This involves a little bit of psychology, all right? So why would people be willing to take a discount and lose some equity? It's because of circumstances, okay? Maybe they're going through a divorce and they need to do a fire sale of all their assets so that way they can split off things accordingly, or they have motivation to do whatever because of divorce. Or maybe a death, okay? Maybe someone who owned the house passed away and now it's owned by the heirs of the property. A lot of times it's the children, the spouse, or someone else in the family who's that was deceased. So in those situations, if the heirs of the property who inherited it don't want the property, or maybe they live long distance, they probably want to sell it at a discount because they don't want to go back and forth to maintain it, to upkeep it, to pay for the taxes, to pay for the insurance, and maybe even pay for the mortgage to have a house that's sitting around doing nothing. Okay. Or maybe there's health issues. They need to downsize or they need to move to a assisted living care or whatnot. Some people just need a fresh start and they're very motivated to getting a fresh start. They need cash or they have deferred maintenance or job relocation, or maybe they're absentee. Maybe they own a piece of real estate that was rented out by tenants that didn't take care of their property. The tenants tore it up and now they have no idea what to do, how to evict the tenants, or how to get the property back to where it was. Those are motivated sellers as well. And then, of course, stress. All right. you know, every now and then in your adult life, you will be stressed out. The question is the stress unbearable enough to where you want to just get rid of that headache and move on with your life? A lot of times, a piece of real estate to an unexperienced person, how to maintain it, becomes very stressful. Who do I call to fix the roof? Who do I call to fix the water damage? Who do I call to remediate the mold? What do I need to do before winter comes? All these different things they have to think about that they usually would not have thought about because they didn't have the piece of unwanted real estate. Okay, so those are the types of things that may cause motivation. Now, those are just a handful of things. I'm sure there are other things that come along the way, but these are the most common ones. All right. Now, when you're qualifying leads, you want to look for signs of unmotivation as well, so that way you know where to categorize them. Because if they're not motivated now, you don't want to expect them to accept an offer today or sometime in the near future. What you want to do is put them in a category where what we do is called drip. You drip on them because they're not motivated now, or maybe they're in denial. Maybe they say their house is worth $400,000 because that's what Zillow says, right? But in reality, the house is not worth $400,000 because of all the disrepair, or maybe there's a lot of undesirable factors that go onto the property. Maybe they're near high voltage power lines. Maybe they're near a busy street. Maybe they're in an area with a big eyesore in front of their house, like an industrial complex. Whatever it may be, they have not taken into account all the things that Zillow takes into account. And that's where you come in to help their denial go into reality. But it takes time for people to go from denial to reality, okay? And that's why we put them on what we call the drip list, because they may not listen to you now, but they remember excuse me, but they'll remember what you said, and maybe weeks down the road, months down the road, or maybe even years down the road, they'll remember, say, you know what, that person told me this would happen. I think I'm ready to sell now. Where's that person's phone number? And that's a situation you want to be in where they're looking for your phone number. You want to be able to follow up with them on a consistent basis where you're not pestering them or bothering them, right? But instead keeping them on top of their mind in case and when they're ready to sell their piece of real estate. So if they're saying that, well, I want top dollar for their home, that's signs of unmotivation right there, all right? Or maybe they're thinking about renovating themselves. That means they probably have some money laying aside to be able to afford a new kitchen, a new bathroom, or do whatever they need to do to make it retail ready. They may have the money, but they may not have the desire to go through with that project because it may take months before that project is done. Do they want to wait that long? Okay. Remember the thinking about it. Okay. Or maybe the seller, they think they can wait. In other words, there's no need for them to sell today. There's no urgency, so they can't wait. That means they're not motivated yet. So don't expect a deep discount for those situations as well. Remember, our value proposition is that we're willing to help them in their tight situation now, and but in order for that to work for us, we must buy at a deep discount. Our service is to be able to get them out of that headache property as soon as possible so they can move on with their lives. So our value proposition are these 5 things right here. Number one, you're buying it as is. Now, what does that mean? If you're a licensed agent, usually when you sell a piece of property as a listing agent, you're buying it contingent on a home inspection, meaning that if a home inspector finds defects on the property, the seller is liable to fix what's negotiated on the home inspection addendum. But if you're buying it as is, whatever is found there, defects, known or unknown, They are going to sell to you as is, and you, the buyer, will accept all liability, and the sellers are off the hook. Now, what happens, in situations where there is a defect that's not known by the seller? Well, guess what? They're off the hook. If there's a defect that's known by the homeowner, they can disclose that if they choose to, or they can choose not to disclose that. Guess what? They're still off the hook. But if they sell a piece of real estate to a retail buyer who does a home inspection with contingencies and not buying it as is, that means down the road, within the next year, if there are defects, regardless if it's known or unknown, the homeowner can go back and sue the previous homeowner for not disclosing the unknown defect. That is their right, and they can do that. So to avoid all that headache altogether, they want to sell it as is so they can take the money and move on with their life. Second value proposition is that we're buying with cash, meaning that we don't need to get approved for a mortgage. So there's no appraisal needed, and then there's also no underwriting needed. There's no income documentation. There's nothing needed to get this thing to closing. Generally, with a mortgage, it takes 30 to 45 days to go to closing. Buying a cash sale, it can close as fast as the title company can close once the title is clear. Generally, 2 weeks or less, they can see money in their bank account. No contingencies whatsoever. No financial contingency, no radon contingency, no appraisal contingency, no home inspection contingency, no contingency whatsoever, meaning the sellers are off the hook. And also fast closing, we mentioned that already. And last but not least is that they are not working with an agent because they're working directly with you, who are the buyers of the property, and they're not paying a 6% commission of the price they're selling to you at. So they're saving money right there off the bat. Okay, so that's our value proposition. Now, when you come to negotiating, you think about it, you want to take a look at, who are people willing to work with? Well, historically, people are always willing to work with those that they know, that they like, and they trust. Think about it. If you ever gone shopping before, to the mall or to wherever, not needing a single thing, but you met someone that came across so charismatic that you liked them and then you trusted them, and then, even though you didn't need anything, you ended up buying from them because of that rapport. All right. Now, on the opposite side, have you ever gone shopping before where you know you need to buy something, but you came across someone so rude, so disrespectful that you just flat out didn't like them and definitely did not trust them? So you end up leaving without buying anything, even though you needed to buy something. That happens in any situation, and especially happens in real estate. So you want to come across as someone that's likable, that's someone that's trustworthy. All right. So that's going to be very, very important. So come across that knowing that you care about their situation, you empathize with the situation, and you want to work out a deal that's a win-win for them and a win-win for you. All right. So when you're negotiating, you're going to be doing your analysis. You can go look at the ARV. You're going to look at how much it costs to renovate the house. And then you're going to be determining what the target purchase price is that you're comfortable with, to make sure that you do not put yourself at risk, but at the same time, giving yourself decent margins to make money at the same time. So here's all situations I have ever dealt with through the hundreds of deals I have personally negotiated myself. The homeowner has never come across and told me, Nhan, I want to sell to you at the price that you want to buy it at. Okay, it's always a little tug of war. They always want it to sell at this number, which is high, all right, but your number is always down here, which is way down here. So that's why the seller's price is on top and your price is at the bottom. Okay, it's always going to be like that. I have never dealt with a deal where it just meets on the first conversation. Never has that happened. Okay, so it's going to be a process and a couple of iterations between you come to an agreeable price where they win and you win at the same time. So from their top seller price to your low ball offer price, you're going to come somewhere in the middle where both of you will have an agreed upon price. It won't be your first number, it won't be their first number, but it'll be a number that you come up with together that works for both of you. All right. So when you're negotiating, you want to ask them, of course, what their asking price is. Okay. How much are you looking to sell this piece of property for, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner? Let them tell you the number. Some people will tell you, some people won't, but it's good to ask anyways because you want to know where they are. All right. So if you don't know where they are and you negotiate blindly, you most likely will fail. So if you can find a way to get that number out of them, that will help you in your negotiating ability. Because whatever that number they throw at you, let's say you ask them how much you want for this house, and they say $300,000. Okay. Now, whether you've done your analysis already or not, the next question to you is, okay, well, Mr. Seller, I appreciate you sharing that number, but let me ask you this. How did you come up with that number? All right. You want to know what they're thinking of. All right. How did they come up with $300,000? Is it because of tax assessed value? All right. Is it because all right, try and get to the next slide. It's because they're looking at neighborhood comps on maybe homesnap.com or Zillow.com or Redfin.com. Are they looking at what's there? Okay. Or maybe because they bought the house 5 years ago for this price, but they put in this amount of money to renovate the house and fix the kitchen or change the hot water heater, and they expect all that money to come back. So, so you want to know how they're thinking, how they came up with that number. Let them explain that to you. Okay. Take the information, remember it. So that way, when you do your analysis, you can see if they are flawed in their thinking or if they are right on. Generally, because most homeowners are not in real estate and this is not their profession, they are generally flawed. Now, unless they're an experienced agent, they are generally flawed. Okay, so how do you refute that or rebuttal that in a tactful manner to where the trust continues, but they listen to you because of your rationale on how you came up with your number and why their number doesn't make sense. If you come to a perfect agreement there, then the thing is golden, okay? So let's go on to the next slide here. So when you're negotiating, you want to provide strong justification for your offer, for your position. I mean, include pictures, and even more so with contractors' estimates. So for if there's mold in the basement, or if there's a leak in the roof, or if there's a lot of junk, around the property, you can provide an estimate from a contractor on how much it'll cost to take care of those things, and that right there can show proof in itself on how much it'll cost. That's the headache that you are trying to help them to avoid by them selling to you. All right. So documentation beats conversation. Also, if there's an opportunity to find another property similar to theirs that also sold at a discount, then share that with them. I mean, there's so many times where I have come back with other comps showing them that other properties have sold for certain prices that's almost the same exact as their house, same age, same design, same build, same number of bathrooms, same size, same lot size, same everything. And they come back and it's like, well, I didn't know about that. All right. So they may want $300,000, but have an exact comp that was purchased by an investor that was purchased for $100,000. So how can they argue with that when you're showing them flat proof of evidence and documentation? Okay. So they know that you're not trying to cheat them, which is true because that should never be your case. Your goal is to show them documentation on why your offer is the way it is, so that way you can help them help themselves. All right. Moving on to the next thing, re-emphasize your value proposition. By the way, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we are buying this as is, which means that if you agree to this price today, in 2 weeks' time, you'll see money in your bank account. All right. And that's all it is. Okay. You want to create a win-win for everybody. Okay. And most importantly, sometimes deals can be, depending on the seller's personality, it could be annoying. It could be, frustrating. It could be a lot of things. But the key is to be patient. Okay. Remember, if you're willing to deal with difficult people, then you'll be able to succeed in anything. Most people are not willing to deal with difficult people. And the most difficult people are the ones who give us the best deals. Okay. So the more difficult they are, say thank you so much for this difficult prospect, because that means there's opportunity. No one else wants to deal with them. But you know what? If you're patient enough, you can deal with them and you can end up having a great deal as long as you're patient. Keep your cool and don't lose your temper. All right. All right. And I've dealt with deals where I had to negotiate, sometimes it could take a month, 2 months. I mean, I've negotiated a deal that lasted for a whole year. But you know what? When the deal was done, it was an incredible deal. And because we spent so much time building that rapport with one another, that person didn't want to work with anybody else because of that relationship. Okay. So now that's the theory behind everything. All right. We are going through a couple of examples right now. By the way, guys, if you have any questions of what has been discussed so far, don't forget to type your questions in the chat box. And, some of our says we'll be typing in the chat tool later on, both in Facebook and also here on Click Meeting. And we will address those questions at the end of the webinar. Now, if you have a particular situation, a particular deal you want to ask about, feel free to ask about it, okay? And I'll do my best to guide you along what to do next to move that deal to the next thing. Now, we're going to be doing a little bit, something a little bit different in our examples, okay? I want you guys to participate with me in these deals. I'm going to give you, these are real examples that we have personally done. And I want you to share with me later on, based on the facts and circumstances, how much you would offer. and then we'll see where we land when we came to the actual purchase price of the deal. Okay, so here are the facts. This is a deal that we did in Woodbridge, Virginia, some time ago. I share this deal because there's something very unique about it, and there's a lesson to every deal that I'm going to share with you tonight. All right. So by the way, for those who are on Connie and IRL, if you can definitely send that chat message over in Click Meeting and also in Facebook, that'd be great. So that way people can start typing questions if they have any. Okay. So let's go into the situation right now in this property in Woodbridge. Here's the situation. It's a townhouse. It's 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath. The tax assessed value in 2012 was $102,000. Now, we were looking at this in 2012, okay? Here's the situation. The seller is a burnt-out landlord, and he lives locally. The person who used to live there didn't take care of the place. The hot water heater somehow had a leak and leaked all the way down to the bottom level and caused a lot of damage to the drywall, baseboards, flooring, and everything. So there's a lot of deterioration because of that water leak. All right. The seller's thinking. Here's where they're thinking from. Okay. They're thinking that they're using Zillow and other online tools to guess the value. He also is a DIY person. He does not want to hire an agent to pay 6%. He purchased this property in 1987 for 67,000 and some change. All right. Now here's our analysis. At that time, the ARV was $150,000. To make it resale ready, it would have cost $25,000 to turn into a 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath. Now, for those who are in Click Meeting and for those who are on Facebook right now, what I want you to do is this. Based on this information, I want you to spend the next 15 seconds and go into the chat tool and type how much you will offer for this property and type it into the chat tool right now. We're going to play a little Jeopardy music. Just analyze the data here. All right, $102,000 tax assessed value. They bought it in 1987 for 67. How much should you offer for this piece of property? All right, so we haven't had anyone chat here. Okay, John Dow has indicated 65,000. Do we have anyone else who wants to guesstimate how much you should be offering for this house? Someone said 80,000. All right. Frank said 80,000. Valerie said 55,000. Okay, so let me stop right there. Let's take a look at what we did here. All right. So take a look here. In 2011, November, we purchased it for $57,500. All right. So Valerie was the closest one. So Valerie, congratulations. Okay. $55,000. And you know, funny thing, our initial offer was $55,000, but we went up a little bit to meet in the middle to where he was because he originally wanted $95,000. $95,000 to $57,000 was not a bad meeting in the middle, right? He met in our middle, not his middle, because that's the number that will work for us. Now, keep in mind here, guys, we bought this in 2011, less than how much he paid for it in 1987. How often does that happen? Okay, and not often at all. Okay, and so here's the lesson I want to share you guys here. It does not matter when the seller purchased the property and for how much. What matters is the current market and condition of the property and what number will work for you. All right. Remember, you're not giving a number that works for them. You're giving them a number that what works for you. And hopefully you can somewhere meet in the middle to where it will work for everybody. But he was very motivated to get rid of this house because it was just a pain in the butt for him. And he was a more elderly person as well, who did not have the physical capacity to maintain the property on himself. And he's a DIY type person. He didn't want to hire anybody else. Okay. So hopefully you guys got a great learning lesson for that one. Let me share with you guys another one. This one's in Stafford, Virginia. Okay. So here's the situation that's going on. We negotiated this in 2017. So here's the situation. The seller lives locally and the home is currently underwater. The owner is also a contractor, and he used it to basically store all of his contractor material, all of his pickup trucks, all of his heavy machinery. There are appliances everywhere. There's just stuff everywhere. All right, a lot of junk. And this house sat on 1 acre, and all 1 acre had junk on it. It's like a junkyard. Okay. So the mortgage balance is $320,000. All right. He's obviously underwater. Here's what we're not working with a seller anymore. We're not working with the seller's lender. All right. Because it's underwater, we go through what's called a short sale. Here's what the lender is thinking. The lender was thinking about asking $285,000, and they're willing to take a $35,000 loss. But they had a BPO agent come in, and BPO stands for broker's price opinion. And that BPO came in at $210,000, and that's what they wanted for this amount based on that analysis. Okay, the tax assessed value was $237,000, 3 bedroom and 3 bath. Renovation was $70,000, and then the ARV is $300,000. Now, based on these numbers right here, how much would you offer? And type in your numbers in the chat right now. And we'll give you 15 seconds with the Jeopardy music, okay? And Raj, by the way, I see your question. I'll address those questions at the end of the presentation, okay? That's a great question. All right, so now we have a couple of more takers here. We have Gina offering 105. Man, you're getting aggressive. Carlos at 205. I got Frank at 145. And then we got Lincoln at 120. John Dow at 135. All right, so the lowest one is 105. The highest one is 205. Let's see where we landed here on this deal. So when you deal with a short sale, you're not working with the seller's lender, and you want them to get approved for a specific price. Okay, now here's what happened. I zoomed in here. All right, I zoomed in here that the payoff to the lender, even though the mortgage balance is $320,000, they will be receiving $128,000 in change as a payoff amount to pay off that mortgage and then forgive the rest to the borrower. Now, in order to make that happen, the purchase price needs to be $142,500 to help pay for the seller's closing costs, help pay for the commissions for the agents that were involved in this deal, and so the purchase price ends to be $142,500. So those who are in that ballpark, congratulations, that's exactly the numbers you target. Okay, Gina, 105. Hey, I wish we got this deal for 105, but unfortunately we did not. Okay, but that would have been a great number. Valerie, staying with you with 125. It would have been a great number. I would take that all day long. So here's the lesson for this deal. Current mortgage balance does not matter. If the property is underwater, you do not have to worry about the bank. I guarantee you the bank will stay in business long after you and I have died. Okay, the banks will always be taken care of by the federal government. So I have no sympathy for the banks whatsoever. I will negotiate the deal aggressively because no one or no regular people are going to be affected anyways. It's just the bank. So I negotiate aggressively, and the number should always be justified by the market and the physical condition of the property, not by the mortgage balance. So if you see here, a purchase price of 142 and the mortgage balance of 320, that's less than 50% of the mortgage balance. All right. Generally, in all short sales, my offers are always less than 50% of the actual mortgage balance, and the banks are willing to take that loss to avoid a foreclosure and deal with that headache. Okay. So hopefully that was a great lesson there. All right, another example here. And by the way, all my examples has a very particular lesson when it comes to negotiating. So I hope you guys are really absorbing this because it is very, very important in these real life examples. Okay, so here's another property out in DC. All right, 4227 Gorman Street. Now this was negotiated more recently. This was done in 2018. So here's the situation. The seller are deceased owners. They were transferred to children who do not live locally. The house is free and clear. There's no mortgage whatsoever, but there is a lot of clutter inside the house. The previous owners were hoarders, and the house has been vacant for several years because in DC, it may take several years for the probate process to complete. So while the probate process and the legal stuff are going on in the court system, guess what's happening in the house? Absolutely nothing. So if no one's maintaining it, guess what's going to happen? There's going to be mold. There's going to be infestation of rodents and cockroaches and rats and all those things. And the house deteriorates even further. Okay. So they asked the owners, the heirs of the property, the children asked for $275,000. The tax assessed value was $201. The renovation estimate is $80,000. And the ARV is $390. Based on these numbers right here, please guesstimate in the chat now how much you would offer, and we're going to enjoy Jeopardy all night long, okay? Remember, this house is full of clutter. Just imagine how much money it would cost to remove everything. Well, I got a lot of people agreeing on 170. There's that Frank at 190, 190. Sounds like an auction. Who's going to win the auction? All right, I got Valerie at 150. You got Gina at 155. All right, so let's stop right there. Let's see where we're landing on this one, okay? All right, so here's the actual contract. We agreed upon 150. Now, how on earth did that get the seller to go from 275 down to 150? It's because they realize, they haven't been to the property forever. My videos and my pictures and my contractor's estimate said the whole story. They saw the rats, they saw the mold, they saw, it was the summertime when I looked at it, and they saw ants and rodents crawling all over the place. And actually, I zoomed in on that. Okay. And they saw all that. Who would want to go back there and take a look at that? They don't want to go back there. So if they found someone who's willing to do that, they're like, hey, you know what? Let's just sell for 150 and move on with our lives. Okay. So that's exactly what happened. A picture and a video is worth 1,000 words, and it says it all. Okay. So looks like Valerie, you won the case again at $150,000. So congratulations. You will do very good in Jeopardy. Okay. All right. So the lesson here is that it is important to see where the seller is thinking and how they produce their asking price. Now, the 275 they came up with was based on what they saw in the current marketplace, but did not take into consideration that the house has been vacant for years and deteriorated because no one has been maintaining it. When I went in there, just imagine the kinds of things that I saw, okay? There are 3 gas lawnmowers in the living room. There were 2 weed whackers in the dining room. All right. There were jugs of stuff with yellow solutions or yellow liquid. I don't know what a yellow liquid was. Okay. But there are rodents and ants crawling all over it. So just imagine they don't know about these because they haven't been to the property forever. They're just waiting for the probate process and the legal stuff. Okay. So in this case, their analysis was flawed. It was easily refuted by evidence of the contrary. Also, they wanted a buyer with absolute certainty that they will close in 2 weeks. We have never missed a settlement. All right. If title is clear, we will always meet a settlement date. And that's our reputation on the line there. And that's what they were going off of, is that we were a real deal. We're not the types of people who make a cash offer with no cash in the bank. Okay. A lot of people try to wholesale and try to do things, and they don't have cash in the bank. But you know what? That's different for us because we're part of an organization, Fortune Homes team, that has cash in the bank to be able to make these offers and make it strong enough to where they believe that we can perform and that we're not a fly-by-night deal. Plus, that fact that we're over 11 years in business and it shows that we are BBB accredited and all that stuff is very, very helpful because that shows credibility. Okay. Okay. So as you guys know, not only do we do our own deals, but we also have a big network of students who've gone through our training programs, who've gone through mentoring. They've attended our boot camps. They have attended our mentorship. They have attended some of our paid subscriptions that are online. We changed up our education platform when COVID happened a couple of years ago, and everything went virtual. So we still are educating students to this date. So here's an example of an actual student that went to our class who got an actual deal. All right. So let's go through that example real quick. All right. So this one's in Woodbridge, Virginia. Situation was that the owners of the property, the original owners, have been deceased. It's already been transferred to the daughter. Now, this is in Virginia. The probate process happens much faster in Virginia than it does in DC. So it transferred to the daughter pretty quickly. And then the daughter decides to live in the house for herself and her son, and I guess her boyfriend, whoever that may be. But her mom, who lived in the house before, it was completely paid off, so it's free and clear. There was absolutely no mortgage payment. All right, but here's the problem: even though you didn't have a mortgage payment, guess what? You still have a real estate taxes to pay for, and you still have insurance to pay for. All right, she never paid for the county real estate taxes. After 3 years of not paying taxes, she owed about $20,000 of past due taxes. And each county has a certain threshold on how long they're going to wait before they do what's called a tax sale. So there's already a notice that they're going to be doing a tax sale by a specific date if they did not get the tax bill paid up to date. She didn't have a lot of time because if the county does a tax sale, guess what happens? When the house is free and clear, she loses all the equity that she ever earned in that her mom ever earned in the property. Does she want that? Absolutely not. She needs someone like us to be able to buy that property with cash, given the problems of its physical condition, and close quickly before the county tax sale date. So the tax assessed value is $281, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. Renovation estimate would have been $85,000. ARV is $360. So based on these numbers right here, how much would you offer? Please type it into the chat right now in the next 15 seconds. Man, we got a couple of people agreeing on 160. 190, 170, 160, all in the 100s, right? All right, so let's stop right there and let's see how well my student negotiated this deal. All right, my student got this down to $100,000. Can you guys all say, holy cow? Right? He got it down to $100,000. All right. And he ended up wholesaling the deal to us, which we later fix and flip. So here's the thing, guys. Here's the funny thing. Here's the rest of the story. On the day of settlement, all right, when you go through settlement, you go through a final walkthrough to make sure the property is in the same condition. So in other words, it didn't burn down, a tree didn't fall on it, it wasn't broken into, and things like that, right? So make sure it's the same condition. Well, what happened was that on the day of settlement, we did a walkthrough, and here's what we found. This wasn't there before. But whatever was happening was that the toilet on the upper level, the water was kept running. They just left it on. All right, you just left it running, and it was leaking outside the toilet everywhere. And wherever it went upstairs, went downstairs to the basement. So the picture on the right is not very clear, but you see water dripping from the ceiling, and that was been dripping for a whole day. And so there's a puddle of water, probably like an inch thick, inside the basement. And thank goodness it was turned off eventually, so it didn't get to the electrical outlets. Okay, so it was not the same condition as it was in. All right, was not the same condition it was in. So what happened? I advised my student to don't just lay flat on the ground, even though we could have just closed on the deal, and said because of negligence and because of material damage, he has the right to renegotiate the deal. And I advised him clearly on what to do next, and he renegotiated down from 100,000 to $90,000. So he got an even better deal due to the seller's negligence. I mean, I am a very forgiving person, but when someone flat out lies to you and takes advantage of your situation, you have to respond in kind. You don't just take that laying down. All right. I myself personally, I'm a very charitable person to people of good heart and good desert. We take care of people. But when someone is trying to screw you, you respond in kind. And we have the right to do that, because if they did not agree to 90,000, guess what would happen the following week? Tax sale, county tax sale, they lose everything. No thousand instead of 90,000. Which one do you want? So they had no choice but to agree to $90,000. All right. So an even better deal. How often can you go to Woodbridge and find a one level rambler with a basement for $90,000? Not often, right? And this was done, I believe, in 20. What year was this done? It was done in 2019, so not too long ago. Okay. All right. So that's that situation here. And here's the lesson for this one. The more motivated the seller is, the more aggressive your offer should be, especially if you caught them lying to you and being very dishonest. Okay. Because if they're not straight up with you, then that's wasting your time and it's causing you more headache, because now you have to be a detective Sherlock Holmes to figure out what's going on. That's more drain on you, and therefore you should get a better deal. If they're flat out easy to work with, hey, you know what? We can figure this out together and blah, blah, blah. But you're going to come across some people who are just outright very deceptive, and it's just the way people are. And so you respond in kind, and your position should always be where you need to be. And so forth. So you should always be in position where the seller, you should always be in position where the seller needs you more than you need them. Okay. So if you're in that situation, you are now in a position of leverage to where your negotiation position is much stronger than their negotiating position. All right. So find yourself in that position, adjust yourself. It's just like playing chess. You move your pieces to different places to be able to get a check here and there, and then eventually you get a checkmate, and they have no choice but to accept your offer. All right. Good stuff. All right, so let's go on to the next example here. All right, and this is another one from another student that this was done in Maryland. So we've already crossed the river. Okay, so we've gone from Virginia to DC, and now we're in Maryland now. And this was done by one of our students. And by the way, this gentleman was our student before, and then he later joined our acquisitions team as a sales associate to do deals, and he's been very successful as well. So if you guys are interested in potentially becoming an acquisition manager for our team, we're looking for candidates right now. We may not bring up anyone now, but we're always looking for candidates down the road as we grow and expand our acquisitions company. Okay, so let me go through this example right here. All right, this was done last year in 2021, so very recent. The sellers are three siblings who inherited the property. It was rented out to their niece, who rarely paid rent. The property deteriorated further while the niece lived there, and they finally got the niece to move out and wanted to sell it ASAP. All right. So here's the crazy thing: two of the siblings lived locally in Maryland, and the other one lived in, I believe they lived in Ireland or some European country. All right. And so they had to go to the embassy to notarize certain things for settlement and things like that. So there's so many different variables with this situation because the sibling was in Europe and the two other ones were here locally, and they had a niece involved. They didn't take care of the property. They were very frustrated with the niece. They finally got rid of the niece. All right. And then we were willing to sell it ASAP. So when we actually talked to these sellers, the niece was still living there. All right. The niece was still living there, and we stayed and maintained a relationship while the niece was still living there to see when they're going to be moving out. We'll help advise them what to do based on Maryland law to get the niece out and so forth. And when the niece was finally out, they're finally able to entertain offers on the property. Okay, so here's the seller's thinking. It says sellers, they do not want to pay a 6% commission to a realtor who may want to bring a retail buyer and do a home inspection. All right, because they inherited the property. There's obviously some history in this property for the neighbors with their parents and everything, and they didn't want all the neighbors, nosy neighbors, come snooping around and seeing what's going on with their personal business, and their parents who are deceased now get all embarrassed by the situation. Okay, so the tax assessed value in 2020 was $412,000. 5 bedroom, 2.5 bath. Renovation was $80,000. The ARV for this property would have been $650,000. Okay, so based on this information right here, how much would your offer would be? Please type it into the chat right now. All right, you got John Dow at 310. Do we have anyone else? 325. 325. Do you have 320? Do we have 335? Do we have 350? Sounds like an auction, right? I've always wanted to do that, by the way, but I don't think I'll make a very good auctioneer because I usually go the other way, not the up way. All right. So 325, 365. Frank says, Frank, let's see where we land on this. Okay. This, by the way, this is done by our student. Okay. We got it down to $315,000. So, John, you're the closest one. I wish we had it for 310, but we didn't. All right. Then another $5,000 off on the deal, but we got it for $315,000. So not a bad deal. All right. So here's the lesson for this. And I have a YouTube video I'm going to share with you guys in a second here. But building a strong trust relationship is key. And fortune is in the follow-up. The seller spoke to us on September 2020, but was not ready to sell. See, they were not motivated yet because of their situation. Okay. So, but there was strong follow-up. If you don't have strong follow-up, you're gonna leave a lot of money on the table that you could have collected. Okay. And also a relationship being built along the way to where they did not want to work with anyone else but us. Okay. And we actually had a chance to record a testimonial from this one of the homeowners, one of the siblings who helped us go through this whole process. And I'm going to ask our team here to go ahead and pull up that YouTube video so that way you can hear the seller in their own words on what they said about our team, this acquisition here. Okay. So Irel, can you please queue up the YouTube video for this thing and play it now, please?
Hey guys, it's Mike with the Fortune Homes team. So I'm here with Svana. You actually expressed your concern before you started working with us. You had concerns about working with cash buyers or these We Buy Houses companies.
So I had heard of and seen all kinds of signs that said We Buy Houses. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be nice if we could just sell this house and not have to do a lot of improvements to it, not have to do all the beautifications to get it on the market. So my thought was, if we could sell this to one of those companies, We Buy Houses, or a cash buyer, you know, that would be ideal. But how do you find a cash buyer through a real estate agent? So, so I did a little research and contacted you guys. I had a lot of reservations. I was very skeptical of going with one of those companies, and I called a couple of companies, not just you guys. And but you were very informative, and you put my mind at ease, and you explained the process really well. I also liked how you followed up. Because for me, I was just calling several companies, and it really came down to who was courteous, that I enjoyed talking to, and was informative and educational.
how would you rate the overall experience in just working with me and the rest of the team?
I would rate it very high. I think you guys, I had a lot of doubt and you always answered my questions. There was a high level of communication, however I wanted to communicate. So whether it was email, text, or phone call, you were very responsive. If I sent you an email, I got an email back. If I texted you or called you, you called me back or answered. And so that was very helpful. I also think for somebody like me that has never gone through a company like you guys, we think we're being had. Like, we're so worried that something's going to go through. We're being stupid. You should just do the traditional way. Why are you doing this? All those things are going through your head. Because we know we're doing it for a reason. So we know you need to make money and we want to do this smoothly, which is why we contact a company like you versus a traditional real estate agent. And you were very good at putting my mind at ease and answering my questions.
I mean, you may have even answered this question, but what would you say one of the, I guess, thing that kind of wowed you, or something that, stood out, and you're just like, okay, this is it, I'm going to use these guys, this is the one thing that kind of made this company legit? Is there any particular thing that happened, any maybe in a phone call, maybe in an email, just like, okay, these are the guys?
It was your offer.
The offer.
I was skeptical all until that point. I was expecting you guys to come lower than you did, and then the offer was pretty simple. Like, it was not a bunch of jargon and fine print, and I like that.
Just a simple question to kind of wrap things up. Would you refer us to friends, family, coworkers if they are in need of selling their house?
Yep, absolutely.
Great.
All right, so hopefully that video was exciting. I mean, when you hear people who work with us as sellers being super satisfied like that, I mean, it's a great satisfaction, because they understood that we're in business to make money as well, and we're not a charitable organization, and they understand that, and so we're all on the same page. They want to make sure that we make money, but at the same time, they feel that they're getting the value they're getting out of it because of the situation that they're in. Okay, so what a great story, right? And if you guys have a portfolio of testimonies like that, I mean, you can go very big, because when they're happy, they're going to send you referrals. They're going to remember the experience. Remember, people may not remember numbers and facts, but they will remember the feeling and experience that you gave them. And you want to give them a VIP experience, and they will never forget. And they will think of you if they think of somebody else who needs to sell their house. Okay, so that's one of the biggest things I can give you guys, and that's just free marketing. Doing things right and having a good reputation is a key to having free and unlimited referrals. To this day, I stick with referrals all the time, because we did right by other people, more so than I think we deserve. So hopefully that was informational, you guys. Now, we're going to go to address all of our questions, okay? So I know we had a series of questions along the way, and we were participating with everyone's offers and stuff like that. But let me go back into the chat tool, and I believe Raj had the very first question, and his question was, generally, it's recommended to ask 70% of ARV. How did you come with $55,000 on that first number? So that's a great question. Here's what I can tell you about this. Yes, the people do use the 70% of ARV minus repairs. All right. Well, guess what? That's where you start, but that's not where you end up. It's a great starting point and a rule of thumb to see if you're in the ballpark of where you need to be. But at the end of the day, you need to do a deep dive on the situation of the thing. The formula is the formula. It's just a guide, but it's not the end all of everything, because every seller is different, every situation is different, every condition is different, and the markets change from month to month, depending on what's going on in that particular neighborhood. There may be a lot of inventory. There may be not a lot of inventory. All right. So when you have a lot of inventory at the time of your purchase, you have a more negotiating position because there's competition for buyers. All right. But if there's low inventory, you may not have that position, and you have to negotiate accordingly. So that formula doesn't account for all those things. All right. In addition to that, you have to gauge the seller and how motivated they are. And you want to see where they're thinking, and then get the best deal possible for you. You have an obligation to make your business profitable. That is your sole goal and mission, is to make your business profitable. And the only way to do that is to understand the market, understand your margins, understand what the seller's thinking, and put down a number where you can maximize your profits based on the circumstance. All right. Remember, that is your obligation. Okay. Again, I personally am a charitable person, but I cannot be charitable unless I make a profit. And you should feel the same way. In order for you to be charitable, you gotta first make a profit. And if it's your first deal, you may not account for certain things, so you may be more conservative on your offer, so you have the appropriate margins just in case something messes up, especially if you're doing a fix and flip. Okay, so hopefully that answered that question. All right, and then along the way, let me go down to the chat tool here. And by the way, Irel and Connie, if there are any questions on Facebook, please go ahead and type it into the Click Meeting chat tool as well, so that way we can address that. All right, so I believe there's another question that was with regards to the repairs. Let's see here. All right, what formula? This is from Frank. What formula do you use to establish a quick MAO? All right, I'm not sure what MAO is. Okay, but I'm assuming it's your target purchase price. So 70% of ARV time. I'm sorry, 70% times the ARV, whatever that number is, minus repair costs. All right, that's a guide, but not the end all. Okay, you want to have a more complex analysis tool that goes behind your target purchase price based on conditions, based on seller motivation, and a number of other things as well. Okay, and then John Dow has a question here. A couple of the examples were townhouses, but are townhouses good to wholesale in a DMV area? And how do you find motivation on town? Hey, any deal is a great deal. It could be a condo, could be a townhouse, it could be a single family home, it could be anything. You can wholesale multi-family buildings of 300 units or more. All right. Any piece of real estate you can put a contract on, you can wholesale. Okay. So is it more difficult to find a townhouse? Probably so. And the reason why is because a townhouse was built more recently compared to single family homes like Ramblers and Cape Cods. Most townhouses were built maybe 70s and later, whereas other houses like Ramblers and Cape Cods were built 40s, 30s, and 20s, almost 100 years ago. So you tend to get more motivation behind those older houses due to condition of the property. But is it impossible to get a townhouse? The answer is no. And you can get great deals if the house is in a situation where it's deteriorated and the seller is motivated. Okay. So I hope that answers that question there. All right. With regards to townhouses, John Dow as another question. It is a bit easier to find a single family that are in rough shape, but townhouses are a bit harder to notice. You thought, and yeah, and I think I just answered that. Absolutely, because of age, right? Townhouses were built in the 70s or later. All right. And then everything else was built before that. Now, if you're in DC, they call it row houses. It's just like a townhouse, but there's no subdivision or HOA community, but they're all lined up next to each other with a party wall. But all those houses were built 100 years ago as well. So the older house, the more likely you are to get a better deal. Okay. All right, and it looks like there are no questions on Facebook. Okay, so hopefully I was able to address everyone's questions. All right, and to go on to the next slide here, we're gonna have a call to action. It's gonna pop up on top here, but next month on March the 9th. Oh, by the way, guys, I apologize. We usually have our meetings on the second Wednesday of every month, but last week I was called away to a conference in Orlando for one of our other businesses, so I couldn't do it last week. So we did it on the third Wednesday of this month. But going back on March, we're gonna be going back to our regular scheduled program and going to the second Wednesday of every month. And our topic is going to be how to wholesale a contract. Okay. So go ahead and click on the red button on top right now to click on register here. So that way you can RSVP to the next month's event. Because if you're a master in negotiating at deals, you're going to learn how to wholesale these deals if you choose to, or keep them for yourself as a rental, or choose to fix them up and sell it for a profit as a fix and flip. So with that, everyone, I look forward to seeing everyone next month on March 9th. I hope this meeting tonight and webinar was informational. You got a lot out of it from the examples, and I'm glad a lot of people participated, because through participation, you learn a whole lot more from the experience. So with that, thank you very much. God bless, and we'll see everyone next month on this at March 9th. Thank you very much.